Here's the thing, if you want to make what your heart is calling you to make, and we all want to make what our heart is calling us to make, whether we're trying to make a vase, or we're trying to make a painting, or we're trying to make a dress, or we're trying to make a weaving, or we're trying to make a life. But in all that creating and making we do in our lives, if we want to create what our hearts are asking, demanding, or calling us to create, then we have to listen to our hearts, which seems pretty simple. But in order to listen to your heart, sometimes you have to get your mind out of the way. Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Sam from thesamanthawild.com. I'm so happy you're here. Mwah! Big kisses to new and old subscribers. While you're here, don't forget thumbs up and do hit the subscribe button. I just cannot wait to get to, I think 600, but actually I really can't wait to get to 1,000. So help me get there. This is a place you're going to find lots of practical and also symbolic assistance in terms of your creativity, lots of inspiration. Today I'm sharing actually about this dress that I'm wearing, but I am a weaver. You can see some of the weaving on the wall. I'll share some of those pieces as well. And I want to talk a little bit about intuitive creativity because that's really my area of expertise. And I do intuitive weaving, I do freeform art weaving, and I am a freeform teacher. I am a freeform spontaneous creative artist, is a writer, and as really probably in all areas of my life that part of me expresses. But I want to talk about how, if we really want to listen to our intuition, things can get a little messy. We have to get stuff out of the way in order to listen to our intuition. So I am in fact wearing a pair of pants, but I'm gonna do a little stroll for you on this dress. Okay, what you're seeing as this dress started life as something completely different. Here's the story. These are pieces of fabric that were cut off a dress that my mother bought. Now, she bought this dress from, I think, Natural Life, and it's the kind of dress where if it's too long, you just cut the bottom. My daughter was visiting her, and my mother said, hey, cut this off because it's too long. So 2 pieces of fabric were cut off. And then they were given to me. Hey, they thought, Sam loves to keep things and weave things and not have things thrown out, which is why I am a sustainable creator. Let's give this stuff to Sam. So I ended up with these 2 pieces, and I thought to myself, what can I make? Because actually, I didn't want to weave this material. I thought, I really like it the way that it is, and I'm not going to weave it. I'm going to turn it into something. Well, how do we do that? Because I didn't work with a pattern to create this dress. In fact, there are some problems with this collar here, this neckline that I have to work on, which is kind of point number 1. If you want to be an intuitive creator, if you want to listen to your heart and let it lead you, you are going to make mistakes. You know those little paint by number things? If you have that piece of paper and it tells you 1 is this, and 2 is this, and 3 is this, and 4 is this, that really works for a lot of people, right? It's relaxing. We know exactly what to do, and it's going to end up looking exactly like this thing, right? It looks like that. You paint it this way, it'll end up looking like that. That is not how things work when we are intuitively, creatively, free-form making, whether it's making our lives like that, or making our art, or making our dress. I applied the same principles I use for my weaving to creating this dress. I started by listening to the fabric. What does this fabric want to be? First I thought a skirt, then I really heard a dress. And then I loved the idea of this little ruffle. So in my creating, whenever I make clothing from my weaving, I make sure that I have the least amount of waste possible. So I had these 2 pieces of fabric, and basically I want to cut the least amount as possible to create and have the least amount of waste. The only waste from this creation is a little bit of fabric that came off of cutting out this neckline. But I didn't have a pattern, and I have to tell you, I'm really terrible at cutting, hence the problems here with the neck. I have to fix it a little so it's more even, and it's not really laying flat. It brings up a lot of insecurities when we are working on listening to our intuition. But if you're not willing to deal with or have your insecurities be brought up, you better go back to bed and sleep for the next 20 years because life brings up our insecurities, and creating art and making and designing brings up insecurities. This is not about insecurities, but this is my latest chakra weaving. Weaving the chakras is something I love to do. This is a totally delightful, totally alive, totally textural piece in the beautiful chakras from the bottom to the top. Now, I might have an idea like, oh gosh, everybody's into beige and everybody's into simple and everybody's into subtle. That's the only thing I should be weaving because that's the current aesthetic. But that's not my aesthetic. I have to be listening to my heart. My heart is so colorful. My heart sat down at the loom and it said chakras, and this is what it wove. And you know what happens to us is that if we're thinking about our audience, we often aren't creating from our heart because we are creating from our perspective of what our audience wants. Whether that audience is people who are going to buy your work or your audience is just people who live in your house with you, or if your audience is your own inner critic. Be willing to make mistakes. That's how you can get better at listening and creating from your intuition. So I don't know what to say, but I made this dress and I like this little ruffle and it was very little waist and the end of it comes down in, where is it? This is the end of it coming down in this long triangle. I love that too. I've never seen a dress like this. We don't need to make things that are things that we've seen before. I mean, we know that that's true. If you're a painter, it's not like you're always trying to paint something you've already seen, but we can apply that to anything else that we're making, including our lives. You do not need to make it look like your mother's life, your grandmother's, or your father's, or your grandfather's, or anybody else's. I've never seen a dress with this design. That's because I designed it without a pattern. I had thoughts come to me. I don't know. Maybe some people wouldn't like, they want less or more armpit hole. There isn't a trim on the edge. I love it. I'm happy in it. And it was also a practice to strengthen that muscle, being willing to listen, being willing to fail, being willing to make mistakes, being willing to feel insecure, being willing to feel like, maybe I'm not very good at this. All these things are part of our process as creators. And I just think about that as all the colors of the chakras, all the colors together, and they go, ooh, up to the top. They get integrated. We need all of those things. So start by listening to your heart, by making space in your head. I know that sounds really weird, but get some of that stinking thinking out of there. Make some room. Nobody can listen to their heart when they're too busy listening to social media or the television or the voices in their head or the judges in the head or the critics in their head. You can see there's a theme here, right? You know what? I always wanted to sew and make my own clothes from the time I was very little, and I always used to use patterns. I didn't even know you could make something without using a pattern. And that's true. But through my weaving, I found that part of me that can actually just make things go, wow, there's a piece of fabric. What's possible? What could happen? And you make mistakes and there's a seam ripper and you take things out and things take longer than you think that they should. And you have to be more patient. But the point is you are strengthening and developing a more important quality than an individual dress. You are strengthening the quality of being someone who can create from divine intuition, someone who has a strong intuitive sense. So tell me in the comments, what do you think of my dress? Tell me in the comments if you love the latest chakras. My chakra pieces usually go very quickly. This one is available, but you have to reach out directly because it's not in my shop. Speaking of my shop, head on over to thesamanthawild.com. Click the link for the shop. I have just updated and put a number of new pieces in there, and it's looking really marvelous. I would love to have you go and check out what I have. Thumbs up, and do not forget to subscribe. It's a joy to have you here, and I hope that you have a very creative, intuitively creative day.